Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for coming today. We're very excited to be here. We're going to be talking about component architecture at scale. But just before we start, Sherry, why don't you give us a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sherry. We are super excited to be here today. A little bit about myself. I'm working as a front-end developer at Nordea Bank in Copenhagen. I'm a Women Techmaker Lead, and I have a lot of passion for the community and have a tendency to make myself involved in a lot of community projects. So we are going to mention only two of them here. One is that I'm a proud organizer of ngVikings, which is the result of collaboration among all the Meetup organizers, Angular Meetup organizers in the Nordics, minus Iceland, even though that we have Magnus here, but he lives in Sweden, but plus Galicia in Spain. I'm also proud organizer of ng Spain as well, which Ana is going to talk about it shortly.
Yeah, so I'm Ana, and I'm a developer avocado for Ultimate Angular. And just like Sherry, I also get very involved in the community. And Sherry mentioned that ngVikings is plus Galicia, that's me. And ng Spain is actually happening next year in June, so we're very excited to announce it. So stay tuned, because stuff is happening. And also, if you want stickers for ng Spain, ngVikings, or Ultimate Angular, just come see me or Sherry later, and we'll be happy to give them away. Now, I guess you're wondering, why are we giving talks together? Because we don't live in the same country, we don't work in the same company, so what's going on there? Sherry, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about us?
Sure. I totally remember the day that we met. It was a sunny day, definitely not in Copenhagen, but in Spain at the Angular camp, as they mentioned, that we found out that we have a lot in common, even though that we live so far. And then we stay connected. And everything happened at ngVikings this year in Helsinki, that unfortunately Shemola couldn't be there, for the ng girl, because she has an AG baby. And then we ended up giving the introduction to Angular instead of her. And while working on that, we found that actually we can work really well together. So now everything has started there. So that was as a story. But Ana, I think you have a big announcement to make.
Yeah, we do. So we are now the proud owners of Jurassic Park. We're really excited about this. However, there was a problem. It was too zoo concept-like for us, and we really didn't like this, did we?
No, we didn't. So we came up with the idea to adopt all of these dinosaurs and taking care of them. But later we realized that we seriously have no clue how to take care of dinosaurs. And we didn't want to be irresponsible parents. So we decided to actually build an application and then put all of these dinosaurs there for adoption instead. I guess it's a brilliant idea, and then we should start creating that here.
Wait. Remember that Jurassic Park already has an application with all the dinosaurs and all the data that we need. So why don't we just reuse that?
You have a fair point. That's a good idea. I really don't want to reinvent the wheel. But Ana, we really don't know how this application is working. And if we go and then try to actually use this application, we have to maintain it. Should we start by looking at the code first?
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Let's go have a look.
Yeah, let's go.
OK, that was really bad.
No.
Yeah, that architecture was way off.
No.
But Sherry, why don't you tell us, what is a bad architecture?
Well, I can clearly explain it by what we saw there. So what we saw there, it was basically a spaghetti code mashed together. And then we even wanted to add few features there. It was totally not possible. So it was not scalable at all. And maintainable, you really could not find out what is where. Everything was just basically one form. And no, it was not a good idea. And reliable, I'm not even sure how that application is working. And definitely not reusable, Ana. So as I mentioned before, let's start from scratch and then put all of those dinosaurs there for adoption.
I agree that we should start from scratch, but you want to put all of the dinosaurs up for adoption?
Yeah, what's the problem with that?
You know there's T-Rexes and some carnivorous ones that could actually eat us?
Mm-hmm. Are you serious? They can come and eat us?
Yeah. So I've actually taken care of them,
Okay.
and it's all good.
So, okay. So,
And-
but how?
I just took, don't worry. You know I love dinosaurs too. I wouldn't hurt them.
Okay.
Okay. And I spoke to the herbivorous ones, and those are the vegan ones like you. And they actually were really, really excited about having this application. So they already built it. It's done.
I mean, in last few minutes,
Yeah, yeah.
they just built
Go
an
ha-
application.
Go show them. Go on.
Actually, it looks good. I mean,
See, they did it. It's all done.
okay, that's great. But still, do you guarantee that they are not the same dinosaurs that they built the application before? I mean, sounds fishy. Few minutes.
Yeah, I think you have a point. We should definitely check to see if it is scalable, maintainable, reliable, and reusable. But just before we dive into it, how about we tell our audience what they're going to be learning today?
Sure. So what we are going to do, we are going to find out that how we split down an application into a smaller section, which are components.
Then we're going to see what smart and dumb components are.
And then we are going to have an overview of how ngContent can help you.
And last but not least, we're going to see how components can communicate with one another. So let's go check out these components.
Yeah, I guess they are somewhere in the forest, so we have to go with our car there.
Yeah, let's go find this component.
Yeah, okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, we saw how it is, but let's look at the code. Oh, no. Can you see what I see?
Yeah, let's take a closer look.
Yeah.
So what we have here is a direct HTTP call from our component.
I mean, that's not good.
No,
Yeah.
we don't approve.
We do not approve it at all. No.
Okay.
Why?
So we don't approve because we had way too much logic in that component for that component to hold. We need to separate it and break it down more. And when we're talking about separating, we need to think about the separation of concerns. And here we have a direct HTTP call from a component, and that shouldn't be happening. Also, we need to make sure that that component takes care of its own logic, so it has single responsibility. And yeah, now that we know why this isn't a good example, can you show us how we can actually save this component?
Sure. We can use services. And what you need to do is that you need to extract what you saw that, for example, that all logic related to how to communicate with the backend, extract it from the component, and then put it in a service. And then later on, you can inject that service in any component that you want to, and then try it, and then call it there. So in this way, you can even inject it in many more components. So you write it once, and then reuse it later. So let's see how we created that. So we basically created a service, and then we extracted those logic here, and then we created a method called getDinosaurs. And then inside our component, this time, we first imported it, and then we injected it into our constructor, and then we just called it and then used it. So, what was that? Anna, you know it.
Yeah, I do. You know I said I took care of the T-Rexes?
Yeah.
Well, they were really angry, so I just had to open the cage and run away.
Why? You just explain me that they are the one that they can eat. Anna.
We gotta run.
Yeah, run. Yeah,
Okay.
run. Let's go to the next place, and, okay. This looks pretty good.
Yeah, this is like a detail page, so.
Yeah.
But let's check the code.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so.
This is just like the first application we saw. So
Yeah.
we have everything in one place. We don't have any sort of, well, they did make one component, right?
Yeah, they just heard that they should use component. So they just put everything here. I cannot imagine that how they, oh my God. So.
Yeah, it doesn't even fit on the screen.
No, not at all. So
It's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is.
So we definitely
do not
approve.
approve it. No.
Okay, so why can't we approve it, Sherry?
So it's basically the same concept that you put too much of logic in one place, and then you totally forget about the separation of concern and then single responsibility. So that's not good. So how can we save it? How can we improve it?
Well, as you know, Angular allows us to use this component-based architecture. And component-based architecture allows us to divide the user interface into smaller sections or widgets called components. Now, a really good practice is to, even before you start coding, to actually get the mockup and start drawing rectangles around it, which you will divide as components. And you can already start deciding what's going to be your parent component, what's going to be your child component, and that way you can also start structuring your application. And you can do, well, we already did that, so this is what we did, and this is our way of structuring it. It's not always the best way, because it depends on the application, but it's a good start.
Yeah,
but
it's a good start.
Can you take it a bit deeper?
Yeah, we can look at one of the components that we created, which is the product. So in this product, while we are adopting a dinosaur, you can also go ahead and then buy some product that dinosaur like it. And so let's see how we did that. So what we created, it was a specific product component, and then we passed 2 input there. These are the data that they receive. So one is about the list of products, and then the other one is about the dinosaur's habit, which means that the product that they like or they don't like. And then because they can buy it, so they need to have a kind of a way to communicate outside of that component. So we have an output for buy. And then look at here. So we only put all the logic that we need inside this component here, and then we ignore the rest. I mean, because the rest, they are in the different components. So everything is nice and clean, and then that component, actually, the HTML is pretty simple here. And in this way, if tomorrow there is a problem with the product, you know which file to open. You don't need to go ahead or Ctrl-Shift-F to find the thing that you want. So you open the file that you need. So I would say that
we're good.
We are good.
Yeah, but Sherry, lately I've been hearing a lot about smart and dumb components. So can you explain?
Yeah, I can do that. We can categorize our components into 2 types. Stateful components, or smart one, or stateless component, or the dumb one. Stateful components are the one that they care about the kind of the business logic. So everything in all the business logic that we have there, they are normally tied to a specific user story. And they also the one that they care about how to communicate with the backend, for example, and get the data. So these are not normally the type of component that they are the best candidate to be reusable. And the stateless one, they are the one that they literally don't care. They just get the data from wherever, normally from the parent, and then they just display in the way that they want to. So these are the best components, best candidates to be the reusable one. Okay, in our story, what we did, we make one stateful component, and this is the one that we also injected the service there. So that we got the data that we want, and the rest of our component, in this way, they are stateless. That product, today we can pass the data for the dinosaurs. Tomorrow we can pass the data about dogs, for example. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess we are good.
Yeah, let's run off to the next component.
Let's go.
Let's go check it out.
Yeah. Okay. That looks pretty.
Yeah, but let's look at the code.
Yeah. No way.
So there's basically a copy and paste with just a change of header. So this would be like, do you know what this would be like?
What?
It would be like having 2 Sherrys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But with this different names.
And that I'm unique.
Yeah, and we don't need 2 Sherrys. Like,
No. Yeah, one is enough. One is enough. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we do not approve.
No, not at all.
So, Sherry, why do we not approve?
I mean, you just saw that here. These dinosaurs, they thought they are too smart. They saw a lot of similarity into 2 forms, and then copy and paste, and they just change something there. So in this way, you're basically repeating yourself, and you really don't want to repeat yourself. I noticed in that component there was a kind of a type of food, and if you want to add a couple of things more to that section, you have to do it in 2 places. So you have to maintain this in 2 places as well. And as the product grows, so this can easily go out of the hand. So this is not good. And testing is same thing, but 2 times, and it's not too smart. And as I mentioned, it's also not maintainable. So, Anna, how we can improve?
Well, in this scenario, we can use ngContent. Now, I don't know if you remember that in AngularJS, we had transclusion, and in web components, we have slots. Well, this is the same thing. And ngContent acts as a placeholder within your code, which you can then reuse later. So what we did with these forms is we put one form, we didn't have two forms, we have one form with the same content, and the places where we needed the change, which were two places, one was the header and one was the button, we added the ngContent tags. And what we do here is we add a select attribute because we have more than one piece of or element that will change its data. And when you add the select attribute, you have to tell it which element you're focusing on. In this case, it was the H3, and later on, we had the button. Now, how do we pass data, or whatever we need to this ngContent tag? What we do is we add our component. In our case, we did it in the app component file, and we add the elements that we need to change. In this case, the H3 and the button, and then we just pass whatever we need to there. This is a pretty simple example, but it can get more complex. You can add another component inside or whatever you may need to. So I think that component's done with.
Yeah, it's totally good. Yeah.
So.
Up to here, we found out that how we split our application into a component, and then how we make it flexible by using ngContent. But Anna, how can these components talk to each other, communicate with each other?
Well, the best practice is one-way data flow. Normally, we would have a stateful component which passes its data down to its children components, or stateless components. And if there was an event to occur, that event would then be passed up to the stateful component and then be handled. Let's take a look at an example. Now, say that the right-hand child component decided to have a change, an event change, for example, a button click or some input or whatever. That event would then be passed up to its parent component, which would then be passed on to the stateful component, which would handle that event and pass back down the data that was necessary. This is really good for debugging, because you know exactly what's going on. But imagine if you had an example like this. Like, we're going to have the same thing happen, so we have an event happen, and all of these things change. I don't know about you, but I would hate to debug this, and I wouldn't even want to look at the code. So we just want to have a friendly reminder that events up and data down. OK, so this is a very simple scenario that I showed you, but imagine if things got more complex. Shuri, what could we do there?
Yeah, I can explain it with what happened to us. These dinosaurs, they came to us, and they asked for a new product, which is pension product. Because they said that what happened to us when we get old? I said, OK, we can fix it. And we started to build some pension product for them. But then soon we realized that each dinosaurs get adopted in different countries. And these countries, each of them, they have their own pension rules. And then we started to build components, and then we realized that to implement all of this logic, we ended up having form that it was a toggle in some part of the form, and it's going to change the whole state of the form because of the business logic behind it. So we ended up in a nested word. And we just said that, OK, we can handle it, because we know that as soon as we stick to the flow, which is inputs done and event up, we can eventually go ahead. So this is a good practice, is OK. But we realized that actually our application it was so slow because of those nested components that they want to talk to each other. And by having all of these middle layers, especially those toggles that is change something over there, so it made everything slow. And even though that we thought that it's going to be easy to debug, but no way. In that nested word, we could not fix it. So what I talk basically was that, for example, in the component tree, that you have a toggle in the A, and that is going to change the one in B. And we could not handle it. So do you have any solution for that? Because I know you have all the answers.
I wish. OK, so it really depends on the scenario and the application. But a good starting point would be going back to ngContent. Now, before we described how it can make a component flexible, but But it can also help when it comes to flattening the component tree. So say we take our example from before, where we had those 2 forms instead of 1. What we could do is just make the 1 form instead of having 2, and we would actually have 1 layer less on the component tree. And this would increase performance, because we wouldn't be having so much change detection going on and so much inputs and outputs. So that is one approach. What would be another approach, Sherry?
The other approach is that to use behavior subject. What is unique about them, that they are observers, that they can be observed. And also, the cool thing about them, that no matter that when you subscribe to it, it's going to give you the current state. So even if you subscribe it late, you still will get the current state. So what we decided to add to our application was that a happiness indicator. So as more product that the dinosaur likes, that the happiness increase or decrease. So you can say that the product component is going to be totally tied to the other component upstairs. So what we did, we created a service, and we put that behavior subject there. And then the component A and B, we injected it there. And then, so in this way, they can talk directly to this service. And then both of them, they can get the current state. So even if for another feature that the dinosaurs, they ask us, so we are going to add a new component, that component can also get the current state. So you can have as many as behavior subject as you want in your component, in your application, and it's going to help you, and it's a good practice, no worry about it. But later we realized that for that pension form, it was not enough.
No, it wasn't. So the other approach we have is actually state management. And this way, we can hold all of the state in one place, unlike behavior subject, where we have the state in several places within the application. So what I mean by this is that we will have the service that will pass the data onto our store, which will handle the state, and then pass it down to the stateful components and the child components. And again, say the right-hand child had an event, that would pass it up to its parent component, which would then pass it on to the service, which would handle this event and pass it back to the store. And that store would handle it so that with the help of selectors, we can actually send down the data that we need to, only to the components that we need to. This is a really cool thing about state management. But the thing is, it's become really trendy, and everyone seems to be using it, even when they don't need to. So we really want to emphasize on the fact that you should only use state management if it's necessary. And if you want to know when you can use it, there's actually a really good talk after lunch by Mike Ryan. You might not need NGRX.
Yeah, I personally want to invite you all there, because he's talking about Sherry principles. It spells different, but he pronounced it the same. So go and watch his talk. So up to here, we found that if you use ngContent, you may be able to remove some of the unnecessary layers. With behavior subject, you can have a message bus pattern. And then if you want to keep all the states in one place, you can use a state management.
OK, I think we're done.
Yeah, we are done.
Yeah. But Sherry, what does the future hold for us?
Yeah. Looks so nice. There is one thing, that we created all of these components, and we made them communicate with each other, but we can go one step farther and then use web components, which is actually our favorite topic. Yeah. We can talk about it forever, but we are not going to do it now.
No, we already have
yeah, I know. So what we can do about web components, web components are using browsers' capability. I pronounced it wrong. Yeah, it's OK. So because of that, we can actually write fewer line of code, but we can gain the performance because we are using that what browser is doing. So we can for example, take advantage of change detection in the browser. So it will bring us a lot of features, including being platform agnostic. So you can actually share your components in the open source world, and no matter that who is using what what framework, they can use it. And even if you want to have a migration plan to some other frameworks, or even from AngularJS to Angular, you can also help it. And then now with the Angular element, we can also use it. So go ahead and read about it, or you can come later and talk to us. We can talk. So is it the time to talk about the ugly part?
Yeah, so even though we try to make our code perfect and our architecture spot on, there's always going to be 20% of that code that we hate and that is really horrible. And that's OK. It happens to all of us. But make sure that the 80% is spot on and you're good to go. Like, there isn't a one solution fits all when it comes to architecture. It really depends on what application you're building, and also if it's like form-driven or data-driven or for the native world. It will really depend. But we want to say that even if you think that your application isn't going to scale, always prepare it for it to be scaled from day one, because it probably will scale. And if it doesn't, well, at least you have a neat and tidy code base. And a piece of advice, we want to say we've insisted that you need to break down components, but make sure you don't break them down too small. Like, there are limits, so not too big and not too small. Find a medium. Also, keep it simple and keep them stupid. Do not over-engineer your application. It's not necessary. It just makes it too complex. And also make sure that your components are testable. Now, as we're finishing, we would just like to say a massive thank you to Todd, Mike, Brecht, Quentin, Manfred, Chris, and again Mike, but the other Mike.
Actually, Mike.
Because without them, this talk wouldn't have happened, and we're very grateful for all of their help. And also a big thanks to Sherry's dog, who appears in that, for all of the mental support he gave us during the photo shooting. So thanks to Lance.
And thank you all for being here. I know that you're hungry. You want to run to the lunch. But before that, we have something. We promised to say that who is our favorite dinosaur. And it's actually Lasky. And thanks to AngularConnect, I actually got the name tag. So you can follow us on Twitter. We are going to share the slide. And then you can also come to talk to us. And yeah, see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.